One morning, the sky reflected. It wasn't obvious at first, just a faint artifact in weather satellites. A repeating geometric shimmer at the edge of the stratosphere that engineers blamed on compression and meteorologists blamed on aerosols. Online, people called it the sky grid, a honeycomb shadow that seemed to slide across cloud tops at the right angle, then vanish before anyone could point a steady camera at it. Then it appeared to the naked eye, for a single second, like the world was inside something transparent and enormous. Dr. Lena Varga took it seriously because she'd been raised under the cleanest skies on Earth, near the Atacama Desert, where the air behaves like a precision instrument. Her father repaired observatory equipment, her mother tracked weather for aviation. Lena became an atmospheric physicist because she learned early that empty air is a myth. The atmosphere is a layered machine, and if a new layer appears, it leaves fingerprints you can measure. She didn't chase rumors. She built a test. Lena aimed a high-energy lidar system straight up and fired pulses into the sky. Lidar is simple in principle. Send a laser pulse, measure the time it takes for light to scatter back, and you can infer what it hit: dust, moisture, aerosol haze. Because different materials scatter and polarize light differently. A normal atmosphere gives messy returns, a continuous smear of backscatter that changes with weather, location, season. Lena's returns were not messy. They contained a clean spike, thin, sharp, consistent. The spike appeared at the same effective height from different locations once she corrected for Earth's curvature. That shouldn't happen. Cloud layers vary. The ionosphere drifts with solar activity. Weather doesn't obey perfect geometry. It behaved like a surface. While Lena was measuring from below, Marcus Day was running into the same problem from above. He worked for the International Ring Authority, the agency that managed Earth's crowded orbital bands, satellites, salvage drones, and the long, grinding business of preventing collisions in a sky packed with hardware. Marcus used to be a test pilot until a near collision with debris ended his flying career. After that he became obsessed with trajectories, momentum, and the invisible math that keeps machines from dying at 8 kilometers per second. One of his salvage drones approached a dead satellite to grapple and deorbit it. The drone never touched anything, but its inertial measurement unit recorded a sudden, clean lateral impulse. No thruster burn. No micrometeorite strike. No debris cloud. No magnetic storm. Just an abrupt change in momentum, as if it had encountered a boundary that wasn't visible. Marcus replayed the telemetry until his eyes hurt. Spacecraft IMUs are brutally honest. If your velocity vector rotates, something pushed you, and the signature tells you whether it was propulsion, impact, gravity gradients, or electromagnetic forces. Marcus had none of those. The numbers looked like a controlled deflection, like a vehicle bumping into a wall made of rules instead of matter. The location of the impulse spike matched the region where the sky grid shimmer had been reported most often. Lena had a surface. Marcus had a boundary. The third person who mattered didn't start with physics at all, she started with meaning. Sana Rhee was a linguist by training and a mathematician by temperament, specializing in finding grammar where everyone else saw noise. She decoded structure in whale song, then in cosmic radio bursts, then in the strange, self-similar patterns of encrypted propaganda streams. Sana had a simple belief: complex systems confess. Not in words, but in repetition. In compressibility. In the tiny redundancies they can't help but leak. She fed everything into her models: satellite shimmer footage, Lena's lidar returns, Marcus's orbital telemetry. She wasn't looking for aliens. She was looking for design. She found it. The shimmer didn't occur randomly. It clustered in timing offsets that matched prime number intervals: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. spacing you'd choose if you wanted a signature that couldn't be mistaken for weather. More disturbing, when Sana compressed the data, it shrank far more than it should have. Random noise resists compression. Structured signals collapse into smaller files because they contain rules. This contained rules. It wasn't just an atmospheric phenomenon. It was an artifact. A system. The three of them were summoned to a meeting that confirmed what their nerves already knew. A government liaison slid a folder across a table. The label read Palisade, eyes only. They weren't the first people to notice the anomalies. They were the first to prove the anomalies shared a single cause. The Palisade file contained decades of classified fragments. Auroras that formed perfect polygons, radio blackouts that behaved like shutters, meteors that decelerated too smoothly as if skimming invisible geometry. The conclusion was written in language so plain it felt obscene. Earth is enclosed in a larger structure. Lena wanted to reject it on principle. The mind hates containers it can't see. But the litter spike didn't lie, and Marcus's drone hadn't hallucinated a momentum change. Sana's primes weren't superstition, they were deliberate spacing. If there was a structure, it would have to be something capable of shaping electromagnetic waves without presenting as a normal physical wall. Something like a metamaterial lattice, engineered at small scales to guide light around it, filter frequencies, and create selective transparency. A photonic crystal, perhaps, a repeating pattern that blocks some wavelengths the way a semiconductor blocks some electron energies. A structure that could be invisible in everyday light, then flash into visibility under certain angles, polarization conditions, or frequency bands. But Lena found a detail that broke the simplest version of the theory. The height of her surface wasn't a height. When she compared measurements from different angles and different parts of the world, the apparent altitude shifted in a way no ordinary sphere could produce. The boundary behaved as if it intersected their measurement frame, not as if it hovered above Earth like a dome. It wasn't sitting in the sky. It was anchored in a different geometry. Lena explained it with an analogy. If you lived on a curved surface, you could detect curvature without leaving it by drawing triangles and finding their angles don't add to 180 degrees. Likewise, if Earth's space was embedded within a larger structure, something like a three-dimensional region contained by a higher dimensional scaffold, then measurements from inside could misinterpret where the boundary is. The shell might not be above the atmosphere at all. The atmosphere might be brushing against a face of something bigger, and their instruments were reading a cross-section as an altitude. That idea changed the question from, "What's in the sky?" to, "What are we inside?" They decided to knock. Marcus had access to a high-power microwave array normally used for space debris nudging, short pulses that could alter the path of tiny objects by heating or charging their surfaces. He repurposed it, aimed it toward the region where the lattice shimmer was strongest, and fired a controlled burst. They expected reflection, absorption, a phase delay, anything that would confirm the presence of a boundary. The return came back wrong. It didn't just reflect. It responded. The phase of the returned wave was modulated in a clean sequence that matched Sana's prime cadence. It wasn't a passive mirror. It was negotiating the channel, like a router handshake. The wall wasn't just there. It was listening. The first plot twist wasn't that there was a shell. The first plot twist was that the shell answered in human mathematics. Sana treated the response like a cipher. She mapped its phase shifts against astronomical catalogs, looking for any reference frames the signal might be using. When she aligned it with pulsar timing data, the pattern clicked into place. The modulations corresponded to pulsar coordinates, nature's most reliable beacons, used in experimental deep space navigation the way GPS uses satellites. Pulsars are so stable that by measuring pulse arrival times from multiple sources, you can triangulate position anywhere in the galaxy. The shell wasn't just a boundary. It was aligned to the Milky Way as an engineered reference frame. It knew where it was in the galaxy. It cared. Lena, meanwhile, noticed something even more intimate. During shimmer windows, brief global moments when the lattice became faintly visible, her atmospheric chemistry sensors showed micro-changes in ozone distribution and ionization patterns. Not like weather, not like a storm. Like configuration. The ionosphere became more reflective at specific frequencies, and polarization rotated consistently, as if a global filter had been dialed in and out. Earth's ionosphere already forms a resonant cavity with the planet's surface. Lightning excites global standing waves called Schumann resonances. If an external structure could manipulate ionospheric conductivity, it could shape a planet-scale antenna, filtering signals, amplifying others, creating controlled propagation paths. It could use the atmosphere as part of its circuitry. The shell wasn't just enclosing Earth. It was coupled to it. That realization triggered the second plot twist, and it was the one that made humanity's egos shrink. This wasn't a cage built for humans. The lattice geometry aligned not to population centers or cultural landmarks, but to Earth's magnetic field nodes, tectonic resonance zones, and atmospheric conductivity paths. Patterns appeared in archival data across oceans, deserts, and polar regions, a repeating global geodesic network that treated the planet like a component. Earth wasn't the prize. Earth was a node. A piece of hardware inside a larger system, and humanity happened to be living inside the hardware. Marcus couldn't stop thinking about his drone's deflection, how cleanly the boundary changed momentum without contact. If the structure could redirect a spacecraft with no visible force, it implied field manipulation, electromagnetic, gravitational, or something stranger that acted like an engineered boundary condition in space itself. He built a probe. Small, matte black, minimal reflective surface, packed with redundant clocks and sensors. He sent it toward the same region where the drone had bounced. The probe didn't crash. It slipped. For a fraction of a second, its telemetry warped. Two onboard clocks disagreed, then snapped back into sync. For 0.8 seconds, the probe reported being somewhere else, as if it had passed through a service corridor where space folded and the normal rules of distance and time were negotiated rather than enforced. Then the feed collapsed, except for one frame captured by its camera before the signal died. The image showed an interior scaffold, industrial trusswork stretching into darkness, studded with slow-moving lights that looked like maintenance drones. Not organic. Not decorative. Infrastructure. And that was the third plot twist. The shell wasn't a dome in the atmosphere. It was only the nearest interface layer of something vastly larger, extending beyond orbital space, perhaps beyond the moon, possibly beyond the heliosphere. Earth wasn't merely inside it. Earth was connected to it the way a touchscreen is connected to a computer. You can see the glass, but not the machine behind it. With the probe's frame on the table like a dead insect pinned for study, Sana composed a reply using the same modulation protocol the shell had used: prime cadence, phase modulation, pulsar reference timestamps. She didn't send poetry. She sent a question encoded in math. What is this structure? When they transmitted it, the world held its breath without knowing why. The lattice shimmered faintly across the planet like a net surfacing through water. People looked up and saw a geometry they couldn't name, then felt embarrassed for having ignored the sky their whole lives. The reply did not arrive as a sentence. It arrived as a change. For a moment, GPS receivers across the world glitched. Star trackers recalibrated. Compasses twitched. The sky's reference frame shifted by a fraction so small it was almost insulting, like a machine aligning a sensor, tightening a screw. Then a new modulation pattern arrived, and Santa's software translated it into the only thing it could be. A map. Not of continents or galaxies, but of nodes, multiple Earth-like interface points scattered across a vast region, connected by lines like a lattice web. Earth was one node among many. The network didn't resemble an empire. It didn't resemble a zoo. It resembled infrastructure. Lena stared at the implications for climate and atmosphere. A shell that could tune ionospheric resonance might also regulate extreme weather. Perhaps it always had, quietly, invisibly, only noticeable now because it was changing states. Marcus stared at the implications for spaceflight. The boundary that could redirect momentum without contact might be a port, an interface capable of routing objects, not merely blocking them. Sana stared at the implication that cut deepest. The wall hadn't appeared now because it was built now. It appeared because it was waking up. They understood, suddenly, why the system used prime intervals and pulsar coordinates. Those weren't messages aimed at human language. They were universal engineering conventions, robust identifiers, clock sources, and sync protocols that work anywhere in the galaxy. The structure didn't speak to them like a creature meeting another creature. It communicated like a machine acknowledging a component had become self-aware enough to ping the network. And the question hanging over everything was no longer, who built it, but what is it doing? If Earth is a node, then what is the network for? A transportation lattice? A sensor array? A shield? A computation substrate? A power system? A quarantine? The Palisade file had never answered that. It had only documented the anomalies and postponed the panic. Now postponement was no longer possible, because the sky had stopped being background and started being interface. For centuries, humanity asked whether we were alone. Whether anyone was listening. Whether the universe cared. They had never asked the more embarrassing question. What if we were never outside? Because if Earth is inside a larger structure, then the sky isn't the edge of our world. It's the nearest wall of a machine we live inside, without knowing what it was built to do, or what happens when it finishes booting.